identify you? Like the author of this upcoming book, or
It's
is it
out
already out
now,
there?
so the book's out
Oh, good.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Author of Log Off: How to Stay Connected After Disconnecting. And if it's easy, Lauren, you can even just an easy link to my book on Amazon, where you can get it on audiobook, paperback, Kindle, all the good stuff is just logoffbook.com. So that would be nice if you could just plug the URL to
Yeah.
easily link to the various formats.
All right, so I want to start by talking about kind of how this came about. So, what do you think has happened in recent years, other than the obvious kind of growth of technology in general, that might have led to this emergence of neo-Luddism?
Well, I think you have to look back, Lauren, a little bit. Luddism started in the early 1800s with the Industrial Revolution, which it's been a while since we did that, but that was huge. That was like the first revolution in terms of work and how we worked. And these Luddites, they were these textile workers from Great Britain that just vehemently viewed this revolution and machines as just horrible for society, and they resorted to violence and vandalism to make their fear-driven point. So totally technophobic, these first Luddites, if you will, the original gangsters of Luddism or technophobia. So fast forward to about 1990s, when the web and internet started coming out, we heard a smaller movement that kind of adopted the name Neo-Luddism. It was a contemporary Luddite movement that was sometimes radical, and they also resorted to vandalism and violence to promote their cause sometimes, but also it was just precautionary. So mostly technophobic, but maybe not as horrible or all this is wrong as the original Luddite. So that's kind of where we got to where we are today.
Hmm. So, what about like the recent events of politics, like looking at the politics that have inundated Facebook, looking at Russian hacking? Like, do you think that these sorts of things are playing into this narrative right now?
Um, yes, certainly so. But I think the bigger reason that there's this kind of what I like to call reformed Luddism or neo-Luddism is the idea that the technology now is so pervasive. It's not just changing how we, our textiles when we go to work to make shirts like we did in the Industrial Revolution. It's so much pervasive that it's at every waking hour of our life now. All these gadgets, apps, mobile phones, mobile internet, social media that follow us everywhere and are constantly alerting us and notifying us, hey, pick me up, play with me, I'm really needy. And so to me, that's the bigger reason that we're seeing an increase in interest in Luddism or technophobia, or like, wow, this is just too much. It's the politics is some of it, but the bigger thing is much more personal, that these gadgets and technology are so much pervasive that it's many of us are feeling addicted. And a recent Harvard university study found that excessive social media use and phone use just make us miserable. It makes us feel bad about ourselves, makes us feel inadequate, especially when we're comparing ourselves to this incredible Instagram feed that just looks amazing, and our daily life isn't like that, and no
Yeah.
one's is really. So we're competing with this staged, curated la fictional universe, and we're comparing it with our reality, and that makes us feel
Yeah.
horrible.
So, like you said, you refer to yourself as a reformed Luddite, and then there's this neo-Luddism thing. Seem to be degrees of this. Can you lay those out for us? How extreme does this get?
Yeah, so so a reformed Luddism or a Luddite is a term I coined when writing my book, and it was at first it was a tongue-in-cheek term that I used just to express the idea that digital apps, mobile technology, and connected gadgetry should be treated guilty until proven useful to you. And I know that kind of it's a weird way of saying we're not just gonna be early adopters, and if society says, oh, this is cool new technology, let's bring it into our lives and let it interrupt our lives and distract us. It's the opposite way, where, hey, that sounds cool, I don't know how I would use it in my life or if it would be beneficial, but it's more of it's technoskeptical, if you will, or it's more being a skeptic about the technology or apps or the latest social media craze before you adopt it, rather than just wholeheartedly jump in, which I think is the default setting for most people, which leads to a lot of the problems. So a reformed Luddite, as I consider myself to be, it never resorts to violence or vandalism, because I really believe that phones are powerful, and smartphones and social media can be very powerful tools, but they must be done in moderation. So it's like a moderate diet, all things in moderation, and I think that's what reformed Luddism really tries to make sense of when it pertains to our personal technology.
But there are some people on the extreme end of this, right? Like, what are they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I know people that, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard too, these people that just, totally disconnect, go off the grid, move to the mountains, preppers or whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of people that are so fearful of this that they just mentally and physically sometimes check out and say, I'm not playing this game. I'm not even going to be a part of modern society in that regard. And I don't think that's a healthy response either. So the default response of, hey, bring every technology or app you can, I'll just let it run my life, that's going to make you miserable. And I don't believe, just totally heading for the hills, the mountains is going to make you, for the most part, most people, that wouldn't be a good fit for most people either. So those are obviously options that people are reaching for. I mean, and then there's other ones too. There's varying degrees where people are quitting Instagram or Facebook. Years ago, I wrote a story for CNN on why people are quitting Facebook. And it talks about all the things many of us know or kind of deep down want to do, but maybe feel like it's social suicide if we were to quit social media, which I'm happy to report it's not. I mean, life can continue, and it's actually even better, I would argue, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, so let's talk about that. I mean, so in your life, you have done some things, like you said, to reform your use of technology, to use it in a moderated way. What have you done?
Well, the first thing, so if I could step back, I started my career as a technology journalist, and so I felt even extra pressure, Lauren, to, hey, if anyone needs to be up on the latest and greatest technology and adopt it, it's you, because it's part of your job and livelihood. So that I felt like I was experiencing, even more pressure to just be an early adopter and just wholeheartedly plunge into every distraction and simulated and virtual thing I could find. And that led to some serious burnout where I had to make a choice. I was not happy. I felt like I was spinning my wheels, and I took a radical measure. Back then I quit my mobile internet, which sounds crazy now, and I no longer do that, but at the time I did, because I needed a clean break from that. I couldn't have that addiction following me wherever I went. I think some other measures that I always recommend that I still incorporate in my life is I turn off all alerts and notifications unless they're from my wife or children, period. Like, that's it. And I know that kind of sounds radical as well, but you got to remember that all these apps and all these devices, their whole business model is to, let me interrupt this person. I need them to engage with me so I can make more money. And it really, by allowing that default, alert or notification setting into your life, you're really letting like a corporation or a company really dictate your day and how you choose to spend your day, as opposed to the other way around. So that's a really big one, is resetting how you let your phone interrupt your life and social media interrupt your life.
So you write about this really on a personal level, and it seems to have helped you personally to moderate your use of technology in this way. But what happens if this movement scales up and becomes more and more common? So City Lab wrote that in the Bay Area, the Luddites are the ones imposing restrictions on the locations of high-tech startups. They're the ones limiting the development of industries that could ultimately power some growth. Do you agree with that kind of statement? Do you think that this could be impending development at some point?
That's a great question. I would argue if you're like a radical Luddite that views all technology as bad, I don't think that's healthy. So I would disagree on that point. However, I believe reformed Luddism can lead to smarter, more convenient technology that takes into account our privacy concerns and our rights for privacy, rather than the default, let's just do whatever we want with these people's privacy. So I think we would actually get better technology and smarter technology and more convenient technology with a reformed Luddite approach, which again isn't radical. It's more skeptical, more cautious, more precautionary. Like, Like, if we don't know the consequences, we're not just going to jump in. We need to figure out how this might affect us. And if it's negatively affecting us, as in the case of social media, we're going to scale back or create measures to make people happier and live more fulfilled lives rather than the alternative that we're currently going through right now.
Mm-hmm. So the original Luddites, like you said, were poor factory workers in England. And now it sounds like this new neo-Luddite movement is sort of a middle class or even an upper class movement, like having the ability to reject technology is like a privilege in this way. And so much of the conversation about technology is giving access to technology to people who do not have a lot of money in order to help them with education or connectivity or jobs or whatever. So I wonder where you see, is that a problem, that this sort of divide in socioeconomic status?
I mean, that's a great question, and I'm not, like a economist by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's good. I think it's good that we're having this conversation and these opposing ideologies about how we use technology, and I think only good can come of that. And I actually see more technology than ever before. My kids are in public school, and I'm floored by the amount of technology that they have access to, which I'm a big advocate of at an educational level, because that opens up so many more opportunities for them to quickly learn, share information, get feedback on the work that they're creating or the concepts that they're learning. So I think it's only a good thing. I would, however, I don't identify and I don't appreciate any resort to violence or vandalism like some neo-Luddites and the original Luddites often did. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. That part I think is bad. But I think it's good that there is this divide and we're having this discussion about what makes sense. Where is the boundary? Should there be a boundary to how and where we use technology? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah. So looking forward then, where do you see this going? Like you said, you have kids in school right now who are using a lot of technology in school, I assume. What kind of lessons about the use of technology are you trying to impart to them?
Well, there's some big ones, and it kind of sounds silly that we're having this discussion, but it's simple things like, you need to go outside, that's healthy for your being. I just read a study recently that, kids they don't even really know how to play. Like free form, unstructured play is becoming a problem because they're so attached to the phone, to having this magic fun box, let them call upon any piece of media that they want. And so it's just like this personal curator or digital nanny that's just, meeting their every need. And because a lot of our kids are growing up with that, they're unable to just what it's like to live in the moment and go out and take a risk on, hey, is so-and-so going to be home, and are they going to be able to play with me? Do they want to play with me? Really important social skills, I think, that we're missing out on. And I believe, Lauren, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. I'm not a doomsdayer by any imagination, but I feel like this is still so early on in this discussion that there's going to be some hard lessons in terms of, I'm sure you've known kids now, even I guess 20-year-olds get anxiety about picking up the phone and having a live conversation like you and I are having right now, which is just incredible to think that that's what we're up against. So for me, it's simple things about using these powerful technologies as tools rather than as the default life setting or the default mechanism that we experience a simulated life with. So I'm a big advocate of, like for me, I like hiking, I like going out hiking, I take my kids hiking, I like being outdoors because it counters, I'm indoors all day long behind a screen and a computer writing, so I need that. So it's very simple things like that, or having a meal together and don't allowing phones or iPads or anything or the TV going while you're eating a meal, which sounds incredibly old-fashioned, but I think there's really great experiences and advice in that simple act of living in the moment, or having that presence of mind in terms of what you're actually experiencing.
All right. Blake Snow is the columnist of The Anti-Technologist and the author of Log Off, How to Stay Connected After Disconnecting. Blake, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this today.
Lauren, thank you.